Here we go. Is this better? Check, check. Testing mic. There we go. I think that works. I think that works. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Now, back to the important question. How do you think an Australian person would say the name Paul? 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 Tropical cyclone Paul. I don't know. We got tropical cyclone Paul out here in the Australia desert. No, near Australia and Papua New Guinea. There's actually something swirling off the coast of New Zealand. It's very interesting. Thank you very much to David who let me know that I was muted. I think I have to check to make sure that my browser is not only is OBS using the right mic, but also that my Streamlabs is using the right mic. Okay. So we were talking about there's interesting rain going on. There's rain in the Arabian Peninsula in Iran and Saudi Arabia, which is really interesting. Let's play this animation. You see, it's going like from the Ivory Coast towards India, up and over through Egypt. It's a really weird looking pattern to me, just because I'm used to there being a strong easterly westerly divide when you are going from the equator to the tropics. But maybe we're getting an upper level jet stream type connection between these areas. Maybe it's precipitating upward. I don't know. But as we can see, we've got one new storm ready to slam into the backside of the United States, just as we were getting rid of this storm that absolutely devastated the Southeast. Well, I wouldn't say devastated, but really significantly impacted in a severe weather kind of way, the Southeast. Let's see. So, what have we got? We've already talked about volcanoes, we've already talked about earthquakes, and we've talked about the weather. Oh, we haven't shown actual earthquake 3D or radar Omega. Let's go ahead and look at radar Omega. So, this is our big view. This is that new storm that's slamming into the west coast right now. Beautiful curve on that one. Beautiful curve. And as we look at the northeast, we see, I mean, honestly, I saw some isolated severe thunder cells today in the southern Appalachian region. I wouldn't be surprised if Galax over here got a whopper, a big chunker of a storm out of nowhere. I'm sure that's what these special weather statements are about. There's also, if you're a pirate out there on the high seas on the Carolina coast, wow, bad weather for you. But also there's gale advisories for most of New York and most of the New England coast. There's small craft advisories, special marine statements. So don't go on a boat today, ever, anywhere. Nowhere in the United States should you be on a boat today, unless you're like in the middle of the country. Actually, in the Ozarks. If you're in the Ozarks and you have a boat, that might be a good place. But there's really high wind on the West Coast and the East Coast. And this is kind of our in-between down day. So, yeah, look out for that. All right. So now that we've made it through that portion of the broadcast, we can take it up a notch. And by up a notch, I mean vertically in the atmosphere. Let's take a look at our solar weather for today. Our solar weather, we have had quite a bit of activity um, from the 11th and 12th. So I think that yesterday's assessment I made that activity was picking up, it was correct. We'd only had 5 from the calendar day when I started yesterday, but they have now since reclassified this one as a potential coronal mass ejection with a type 2 complete halo. So let's take a look at that one again. Letting off that big mass ejection, massive coronal ejection. That was actually not Earth directed. It went off. It's like a little past us, or it's a little before it gets to Earth facing on the eastern limb. And I'll show you what that looks like on the sun images soon. Actually, let's go do that right now. What did that look like here? You can see, yeah, on this one. Let's give them the good juice, the good sauce. Okay. So, yeah, this is where that coronal mass ejection was from, where you can't see this actual sun spot that is emanating this brightness right here. That's where that massive coronal mass ejection was from. But here, facing the sun's on the Earth facing disk of the sun, there we go. You see it? That release? Okay. Now that it's fully loaded, let's watch it play nicely. Yeah. This bright region over here is definitely, that was the coronal mass ejection right there. So, and then all these are spitting off little ones, but this guy and this guy are really ramping up to show off when they come to the Earth facing disk side of the sun. There are some darker regions on the sun right now, possibly increasing that solar wind, and some little pops and crackles and heart shapes and S shapes all over the sun, but really interesting, beautiful weather. But you can see we're about to get these doozies rotating into Earth view. Right now, the biggest thing we've got is like 36, 34, and that's just okay. Very interesting. Let's take a look at what that's done to the rest of our solar activity. See, solar proton flux is nominal. Our X-ray flux has remained in C territory since yesterday's M-class flare. We almost made it up to M-class flare today, but not quite. Not quite. Let's see. What else was I going to bring up? Oh yes, auroral activity. Not looking like a good chance of aurora, even though we are in the southern orientation of the interplanetary magnetic field. The solar wind's pretty low. The plasma density is pretty low. So even though it is blowing towards the Earth, there's not much bonk in our radiation belts. Speaking of radiation belts, I never bring up the Schumann resonances on this podcast, and I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that today. Let's take a look at our Schumann resonances. Now, this does come from Russia, but don't be racist. You can trust it. You don't have to distrust it just because it's Russian. It is... there we go. So this is a graph of... on the vertical axis, you will see the frequency that's being measured. And on the horizontal axis, you will see the time of day marked in hours by UTC C plus 7 hours. And here you see that about 5 hours ago, so wherever you were at like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock here, there was a big power burst. Seeing these vertical lines, it could either be that somebody walked next to the machine, or that if we were getting good data without any interference that way, or rain that way, and I believe looking on Zoom Earth, Russia looked, pretty cloudy, but not too, uh, didn't look like there was going to be too much pollution on the bands here. Uh, these basically show you the background energy levels of all the frequencies that are naturally occurring in the atmosphere. Um, so they're mostly driven by, well, the main mechanism we can link them to scientifically right now is lightning. So lightning strikes on Earth roughly every 7.23 seconds. Really, that frequency of lightning strikes will be your first mode here. And when there are higher power levels, like the intensity here is showing, the color change here is showing the intensity change at different frequencies at the same time. So like if you did a Fourier transform and expanded out what power level was coming through each frequency, this is what it does. That shows what different processes are, or different media are transmitting the most power throughout the Earth. So you've got your first mode around here, your second, third, and fourth. There are several different modes where they like to hover, and it changes where the average most power is. That changes throughout the wavelength scale. When both the power, there's always a little bit of each frequency happening, but sometimes the bulk of energy moves through different frequencies. So there's also a product here that shows where your different frequencies are, where the average peak of that mode is. There's usually 4 chunks of energy going through, and that's each mode. And this shows you where that chunk is. So I said it's usually about 7.3 for mode 1. This shows exactly where mode 1's average has been. Right now we're setting at like a 7.38, 7.37, 737. Mode 2 usually sits around 14-ish hertz, and it's kind of low at 13. Mode 3 is over here, sitting comfortably at 19 hertz, and mode 4 is settling in between, that's right around 25 hertz. So, that's not what that's what the frequencies are. And then the amplitudes are the power level. That is how much each mode. So we just looked at the modes. This is how much power in nanotesla are coming through at each of those modes. So you saw we had a big burst of energy around what's marked here as 5 UTC, or 5 a.m. Russia time, or UTC plus 7, excuse me. So really at like 22 UTC, there was this big power burst. This shows the distribution of which amplitudes or which frequencies got what amount of amplitude out of that power burst. So only a slight peak here in mode 4. Interesting to see such big peak in mode 4 over here with not much power going into the other modes. See, that was around 1300 hours yesterday. Around 13 yesterday. So this right here, you can kind of see this is a really strong burst only in the higher modes. The lower modes did not receive that quite much of a burst. This is a little bit more energy here at all levels. The one that happened at 5 local time. And the quality factor, the Q factor, will show that's a measure of how efficiently the amplitude and frequency are explaining the distribution of power. Now, I've never clicked on this part. Oh, it's in Russian. Yeah. I can't. It's in Cyrillic. I can't read that. Well, anyway, very interesting to see the Schumann resonances. I haven't brought them into our waveform of talking about the planets yet because I just haven't remembered to go on this website. There is an app that'll show. There's also one out of Cumiana, Italy, space observation place, but and there's also one out of Sofron, Hungary, but I haven't taken the time to put this into my show yet, just because it's not been the right time. But speaking of time, let's take a look at our planetary weather. So our planetary weather this evening. We are in a Venus day, in a Venus hour, which is delightful. I love to broadcast when the planetary ruler of the day is aligned with the planetary ruler of the hour. Let's see. We've got Mars separating from that Saturn conjunction. Oh, sorry, my mic got tilted down a little. We've got the moon in a nice sextile to Chiron and the sun and Mercury. Remember, Mercury was just Cazimi the sun yesterday, and is headed towards Chiron. Mercury is headed towards making a conjunction with Chiron, which is also headed towards making a conjunction with the lunar eclipse point, or the solar eclipse point. I'm sorry. The Venus is kind of near where the lunar eclipse was. But anyway, the moon is sextiling that Mercury, and the moon is in Gemini, so it's dispositing towards Mercury. It's looking at Mercury for what to do there. Like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's what planets do when they're in a sign. They look to the ruler of that sign to remember, wait, how do I act in Gemini again? Oh yeah, mercurial. And so making a moon Mercury sextile right now is looking really beneficial in my opinion. We've also got Jupiter and Uranus inching ever closer. They are within 1 degree of conjunction now, so I would honestly call this they have conjoined. They are conjoined now. They're conjunct now, and so everything that is changing is really getting locked in the material world. There are material changes happening. Things are moving. If you've been waiting for things to move for over a year now, they're moving. It's moving on. We've got that is happening in a rough sextile to Neptune too. So Neptune in Pisces. So both dreams and terrors, I think, can explain Neptune, the deepest depths of the ocean and the furthest reaches of space are being brought into the physical manifestations of change here. And that's sextile to so that sex, these are our outer planets. And they're honestly, Pluto is still pretty close to the end of Capricorn. So for an outer planets, these might as well be in a grand sextile. They're roughly sextile to each other. So anyway, we've got the moon square the black moon Lilith. That means that the moon is as far close as it's going to go. When the moon is square the nodes, it will be as far up in its up ramp as it'll go. But that just means we're moving in and out of the page. Let's see. Does that make any sense? Probably not. I'm not making a whole lot of sense tonight, but I am wearing a cat dog onesie, and I have hair. Does my hair look better in this light? I did. I don't know if you guys noticed. I put a black light in my big light. My big light has a black light right now. So, my targeted ads make it look like I am just who am I? I need some sort of plate armor and a minivan tent, a wig, and a faucet. You never know. I'm like, what is this? What is that amount? If somebody came through your aisle at the grocery store and they bought those items together, what would you think they're doing? I can't imagine. Drop it in the chat if you can imagine what they'd be doing with those things. Still in a very heavily Aries and Pisces time. And we will be until the sun moves out of Aries, I believe. But as soon as sun moves out of Aries, we've got Mars going into Aries too. So we're about to have a very strong Mars in Aries. At least Venus had her time here in Aries without Mars around to be annoying. Anyway, let's go ahead and switch to doing a card reading, a cosmic reading. Cosmic reading of the cards. Let's look at, not feeling the tarot tonight. I'm feeling the liminal space deck. We're in a liminal space deck kind of evening. All right, what is the cosmic weather today? What is the weather from the cosmos? Imagining more. How sweet is that? How sweet of a card is that? Imagining more. Are you imagining more? Let's see. What do they say about imagining more? The brain does not register the difference between a lived experience and an imagined one. It is generally agreed upon that the first act in manifestation is to expect the thing you are calling in. Close your eyes and imagine it into reality. Now, that sounds a lot like my other deck, and this is coming from the liminal space. Looks like someone in a field of wildflowers. It could be the sun, but I'm seeing this as the moon. I'm seeing this as a moon with clouds. Imagining more. What more can you imagine? Can you imagine how things could go right? Instead of using your brain to think of how things could go wrong, can you use your brain to think about how things could go right? Maybe. Perhaps. We'll see. Maybe. Maybe you could. Maybe you could. All right. Well, maybe we need to go imagine more now. It's been about an hour. It's been lovely, lovely, lovely time chatting with you all. Have a great evening. Take care of yourselves and each other. I love you very much. And bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Bye-bye-bye. Bye-bye.